Nicole Kidman has made her first public appearance since her split from Keith Urban.
We've been through a lot together.
We've got a timeline for it now, and the time is it's now.
For almost 2 decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban represented something Hollywood rarely gets to keep for long, a celebrity marriage that seemed to survive everything. She was one of the most respected actresses in the world. He was a Grammy-winning country superstar. Together, they built a family, raised 2 daughters, supported each other through difficult moments, and repeatedly appeared to prove that love could survive the enormous pressure of fame. But in 2025, that image finally collapsed. And now, after their divorce, Nicole Kidman is speaking about something much deeper than a breakup. She is talking about a future she once believed was guaranteed. Her recent comments have attracted enormous attention because, for years, Nicole was famously careful when discussing her private life. She rarely turned her marriage into tabloid drama. She did not publicly attack Keith Urban. She did not release a sensational tell-all book. Instead, she has chosen something far more revealing. She has described what it feels like when the life you planned suddenly becomes a life you never expected to live. That distinction matters. Because the real story isn't simply that Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban got divorced. The real story is what happens when 2 people spend 19 years building an identity together, and then suddenly have to discover who they are separately. Their story began in 2005 when Kidman and Urban met at the Day USA Gala in Los Angeles. Both had Australian connections, both had already achieved international fame, and both were coming from very different but highly public chapters of their lives. They married in Sydney in June 2006, and their relationship quickly became one of entertainment's most recognizable romances. From the outside, their relationship seemed almost cinematic. Nicole was the elegant Hollywood actress whose career had already included major critical successes. Keith was the charismatic musician whose songs had transformed him into one of country music's biggest stars. Their personalities were different, but that difference appeared to work. Then came one of the first major tests. Only months after their wedding, Keith entered treatment for substance abuse. It was an intensely difficult moment so early in their marriage. Rather than walking away immediately, Nicole remained beside him. Urban later credited Kidman with playing an important role in his recovery. That chapter became part of the mythology surrounding their marriage. Nicole wasn't simply described as Keith's wife. She was portrayed as the woman who stood beside him when his life could have fallen apart. And Keith wasn't simply described as Nicole's husband. He became the man who brought another dimension to her life, a musician, father, and partner who seemed to understand a part of her that Hollywood could not. Over the years, they expanded their family. Their daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, became the center of their world. Nicole continued building an extraordinary acting career, while Keith remained deeply involved in music. Their professional schedules were demanding, but they repeatedly made efforts to maintain their family life. For years, that was enough. Or, at least, that was what the public saw. The couple appeared at award shows. They celebrated anniversaries. They spoke warmly about each other. Keith frequently expressed his admiration for Nicole, while Nicole described the importance of their relationship and family. The public image was remarkably consistent. But then came 2025. By the summer of that year, the couple were reportedly living separately. Their separation became public in September, and on September 30th, 2025, Nicole filed for divorce in Nashville. Court documents cited marital difficulties and irreconcilable differences. The news stunned fans. After 19 years of marriage, the couple who had survived addiction, demanding careers, relentless media attention, and the pressures of raising children in the spotlight were suddenly ending their marriage. And this is where the story becomes more complicated. Because the public wanted a villain. People wanted a single explanation. Was it another woman? Was it Keith's career? Was it old personal struggles? Was it simply that the two had grown apart? The truth, based on the public record, is much less dramatic, and perhaps much sadder. The official divorce documents did not accuse Keith Urban of infidelity or any specific scandal. They described marital difficulties and irreconcilable differences. That means we should be careful with the rumors that exploded online after the separation. There were reports from unnamed sources about tensions and personal problems, but those reports were not the same thing as confirmed facts. Even Reuters noted that it could not independently confirm some of the early claims surrounding the separation. So what exactly has Nicole Kidman revealed? Perhaps the most important revelation came not as an attack on Keith, but as an admission about herself. In a recent interview with British Vogue, Nicole reflected on the enormous emotional change she experienced after the divorce. She explained that she had imagined her life unfolding differently, and that reality had forced her to reconsider those expectations. That statement is incredibly revealing. Imagine spending nearly 20 years believing you know what the next chapter of your life will look like. You know where you live. You know who your partner is. You know who will be beside you at family events. You know what holidays will look like. You know what your children will need. You know what the future is supposed to become. Then suddenly, the blueprint disappears. Nicole's words suggest that the hardest part wasn't simply losing a husband. It was losing the future she thought she had already built. And that changes the way we should understand the entire story. For years, people looked at Nicole and Keith and saw a successful marriage. But marriage isn't measured by red carpet photographs. It isn't measured by anniversary posts. And it certainly isn't measured by how convincing a couple looks in front of cameras. A relationship exists in the quiet moments nobody sees. The conversations that never become headlines. The disagreements that never reach social media. The compromises that outsiders will never understand. And sometimes, two people can love each other and still reach a point where the relationship no longer works. That may be the most uncomfortable truth about Nicole and Keith. There may be no single villain. There may be no explosive secret waiting to be uncovered. There may simply be two people whose lives eventually moved in different directions. And yet, the aftermath was undeniably painful. When the divorce became public, attention immediately turned toward Nicole. She had already experienced a highly publicized divorce from Tom Cruise in 2001. She knew exactly what it meant to have private pain transformed into global entertainment. But this time, there was another difference. She was no longer the young actress she had been decades earlier. She was a mother. She had 2 teenage daughters. And she had spent nearly 19 years building a family with Keith. The divorce, therefore, wasn't just about 2 celebrities separating. It was about reorganizing a family. According to court documents, Nicole became the primary residential parent of their 2 daughters, while Keith retained parenting rights. The arrangements also included provisions concerning their finances and property. That detail tells us something important. The priority wasn't creating a public war. It was creating a workable future for their children. And that is exactly why some of the loudest internet theories should be treated cautiously. When celebrities divorce, every photograph becomes evidence. A missing wedding ring becomes a headline. A facial expression becomes a theory. A song lyric becomes a confession. A concert becomes a message to an ex. But sometimes a ring is simply a ring. A song is simply a song. And a private marriage remains private despite millions of people wanting answers. Keith Urban's music naturally became part of the conversation because his career is inseparable from emotional storytelling. Fans began examining performances and lyrics for clues about his personal life. But interpreting every musical decision as a secret message would go beyond what has been established. What we do know is that Keith continued performing while the divorce unfolded, while Nicole focused heavily on her daughters and her career. And that contrast became symbolic. One person had a stage. The other had a family. One could process emotion through music. The other was navigating a new life while remaining under an enormous media microscope. Neither response necessarily means one person was suffering more. It simply shows that people cope differently. And Nicole's recent comments suggest that she has been trying to do something very difficult. Accept a future she never planned for. She has spoken about vulnerability, uncertainty, and the importance of remaining open to life rather than allowing fear to dictate every decision. That may be the closest thing to an expose we are actually getting. Because Nicole isn't exposing Keith as a monster. She is exposing the emotional reality of divorce. The reality that even a person as successful, wealthy, famous, and accomplished as Nicole Kidman can feel lost. The reality that having everything does not protect you from heartbreak. The reality that experience doesn't necessarily make the second divorce easier than the first. And perhaps most importantly, the reality that rebuilding yourself after a long marriage can be terrifying. Nicole's career, meanwhile, has not stopped. If anything, she continues to demonstrate an extraordinary ability to keep moving forward. She remains one of the most recognizable actresses of her generation, with major projects continuing to occupy her professional life. She has also been photographed spending time with her daughters and family, reinforcing how important those relationships remain in her life. That doesn't mean the divorce didn't hurt. It means pain didn't stop her. And that may be the strongest part of her story. There is another fascinating layer here. Nicole has experienced fame from almost every possible angle. She has been a young Australian actress trying to break into Hollywood. She has been part of one of the world's most famous celebrity marriages. She has experienced motherhood. She has experienced divorce. She has won an Academy Award. She has endured years of tabloid speculation. She has watched her private life become public property. And after all of that, she appears to be reaching a surprisingly simple conclusion. Life cannot always be controlled. You can make plans. You can make promises. You can build a home. You can imagine your children growing up in a certain environment. You can believe that a relationship will last forever. But life can change the script without asking permission. That is what happened to Nicole Kidman. And perhaps that is what makes her recent comments so powerful. Because she isn't pretending that everything went according to plan. She is admitting that it didn't. That honesty is much more meaningful than a sensational accusation. For Keith Urban, the story is equally complicated. He entered the marriage carrying his own history and struggles. His early recovery became one of the most public chapters of his life, and his relationship with Nicole was often connected to that story. But it would be unfair to reduce him permanently to his past. He built an enormously successful career. He became a respected musician. He became a father. He remained professionally active for decades. And now he is also facing the enormous challenge of rebuilding his personal life after 19 years of marriage. Whatever happened privately between Nicole and Keith, the public doesn't know every detail. And perhaps we never will. But we don't need invented scandals to understand why their divorce matters. Their story is powerful precisely because it is human. Two people met. They fell in love. They married. They built a family. They survived difficult chapters. They changed. And eventually, their marriage ended. That is painful enough. The temptation in celebrity culture is always to search for the secret. We want the hidden betrayal. We want the shocking confession. We want the dramatic text message. We want someone to blame. But sometimes the truth is quieter. Sometimes the relationship simply reaches a point where staying together becomes harder than accepting that life has changed. Nicole's recent reflections suggest she is now trying to live in that uncertainty. She isn't claiming that she knows exactly what the future will bring. Instead, she appears to be accepting that she cannot know. And for someone who has spent decades living under public scrutiny, that may be a profound form of freedom. There is something else worth remembering. Nicole and Keith are not just former spouses. They are parents. Whatever happened between them, their daughters will continue to connect them. That means the story cannot simply end with a divorce decree. They still have birthdays, graduations, family decisions, important conversations, moments when both parents may need to put personal differences aside. That reality makes sensationalizing their divorce especially dangerous. Because behind every headline are real people. And behind the celebrity names are children who never asked for their parents' private lives to become entertainment. So when people ask, what did Nicole Kidman expose about Keith Urban? The honest answer is more complicated than a viral headline suggests. She has not publicly exposed a confirmed secret scandal. She has not accused him of some newly established wrongdoing. What she has revealed is something about herself. She revealed that the future she imagined disappeared. She revealed that the past year was deeply challenging. She revealed that she had to confront vulnerability and uncertainty. And she revealed that even someone who has spent her entire life performing can reach a moment when there is no script. There is simply life. And perhaps that is the real ending of the Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban story. Not revenge, not humiliation, not a winner and a loser, but transformation. For almost 20 years, their names were spoken together. Nicole and Keith, actress and musician, Hollywood and Nashville, husband and wife. Now, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, they are learning how to exist as 2 separate stories. Keith has his music. Nicole has her films. Their daughters have their own lives ahead of them. And Nicole, at this stage of her life, appears determined not to allow one painful ending to define everything that comes next. That may be the most important message in the entire story. A marriage can end without a person's life ending with it. A future can disappear without all hope disappearing. And sometimes, the most courageous thing a person can do is admit that the life they planned isn't the life they have, and then decide to keep living anyway. Nicole Kidman's story has always been about reinvention. From a shy young girl in Australia to an internationally celebrated actress. From a highly publicized first marriage to a second marriage that lasted 19 years. From motherhood to career success. From heartbreak to rebuilding. And now, once again, she is standing at the beginning of a new chapter. Perhaps she never expected to be here. Perhaps Keith Urban never expected to be here either. But this is where their story stands today. And if Nicole's recent reflections tell us anything, it is that she is no longer trying to convince the world that everything is perfect. She is simply trying to accept what is real. And sometimes, that is far more powerful than any exposé. Because the biggest revelation isn't what Nicole has said about Keith. It is what she has finally said about herself. She had a plan. The plan changed. It hurt. But she is still here. Still working. Still loving her family. Still looking ahead. And still willing to believe that life can surprise her again. For a woman whose career has been built around stepping into other people's stories, perhaps this is the moment when Nicole Kidman finally gets to write her own next chapter. And this time, nobody else gets to decide how it ends.